Life teaches us many lessons, but the most painful ones come through people. Not enemies, not strangers, but people we trusted. Some people don't come into your life to support you. They come to use, drain, and test you. So today I want to share something important. 9 people you must never trust in life. Not to create fear, but to protect your peace. Not to judge others, but to value yourself. Words have a strange power. They can sound warm, caring, convincing, and still hide a very selfish heart. There are people who know exactly what to say to make you feel special, valued, even safe. They praise you, they agree with you, they flatter you, and because humans are emotional beings, we often confuse sweet words with good intentions. But life slowly teaches us this truth. Sweet language does not always come from a sweet heart. A selfish person is not always rude. In fact, many selfish people are extremely polite, charming, and well-spoken. They will talk about values, relationships, loyalty, and even spirituality. They will make promises very easily because promises cost them nothing. Their words flow smoothly, but when the time comes to act, suddenly there are excuses, delays, or complete silence. Watch carefully what happens when you need support. When you are tired, when you are struggling, when helping you requires effort, time, or sacrifice. That is the moment when sweet talk loses its strength. You will notice they become busy, unavailable, or emotionally distant. Not because they are bad people, but because their priority has always been themselves. Such people often make you doubt yourself. You start thinking, maybe I'm expecting too much, or they are nice. Maybe I'm overreacting. This is the danger. Their pleasant behavior keeps you confused, while their selfish actions quietly hurt you. You feel disappointed, but you cannot clearly point out why, because nothing sounds wrong. Remember this, character is revealed in actions, not in conversations. Anyone can speak kindly when it benefits them. Real goodness appears when there is nothing to gain, when no one is watching, when helping you brings them no advantage. A person with integrity may not always speak beautifully, but they will stand beside you when it matters. A selfish person may speak like honey, but when you need them most, you will only taste bitterness. So do not be impressed by sweet words. Be patient, observe, notice patterns, see who shows up consistently, who keeps their word, and who disappears when the situation is no longer comfortable. Trust should not be given to the person who talks the best, but to the one whose actions make you feel safe, respected, and supported. Because in the end, words can comfort you for a moment, but only actions can protect your heart. Some people carry pain, and some people carry pain like an identity. At first, they appear innocent, wounded, and helpless. You feel sympathy for them. You listen patiently. You try to understand. You think they've suffered a lot. They deserve kindness, and kindness is good. Compassion is beautiful. But there is a very thin line between supporting someone and being consumed by their victim mindset. A constant victim is someone for whom life is never fair. Nothing ever goes right. And most importantly, they are never responsible. Every failure is because of people. Every disappointment is because of circumstances. Every problem is someone else's fault. They don't look for solutions, they look for sympathy. In the beginning, they make you feel important. You become their listener, their emotional support, their safe place. They say things like, "Only you understand me," or "Everyone else has betrayed me." Slowly, you start carrying their emotional weight. You feel responsible for their happiness. And without realizing it, you begin adjusting your words, your actions, even your decisions, so they don't feel hurt again. But here is the danger. When someone refuses to take responsibility for their life, they will eventually give responsibility to you. Their sadness becomes your burden. Their failures become your fault. If they don't improve, it's because you didn't help enough. If they are unhappy, it's because you didn't understand them properly. And the moment you set boundaries, the moment you say no, the roles reverse. Suddenly, you become the villain. They will say, "I trusted you, and you also left me," or "I thought you were different." Not because you did something wrong, but because you stopped sacrificing yourself. A constant victim does not want growth. Growth requires accountability. And accountability breaks the story they tell themselves. You will notice something important. Advice irritates them. Solutions threaten them. Because if a solution works, they can no longer stay a victim. So they repeat the same stories, the same complaints, the same pain, year after year. Not to heal, but to remain familiar with suffering. Being around such a person slowly drains your energy. You feel heavy after conversations. You feel guilty even when you've done your best. You start doubting your kindness. And this is the biggest loss, when helping someone makes you lose yourself. Understand this clearly. Compassion does not mean carrying someone who refuses to walk. You can support people who are trying. You can uplift people who take responsibility. But you cannot save someone who is addicted to being a victim. A healthy person says, "This happened to me, but I will rise." A victim-minded person says, "This happened to me, so you must suffer with me." Choose wisely who you invest your emotional energy in. Because if someone is always a victim in their story, there is a high chance that one day will be the reason they blame the begin. There are people in life who don't walk with you. They walk towards you only when they need something. At first, it doesn't look wrong. They message you politely. They call you brother, friend, support. They remind you of old memories, shared struggles, emotional moments. And because you are genuine, you respond with warmth. But slowly, a pattern reveals itself. The conversations always have a direction. They don't ask how you are and truly wait for the answer. They ask, and within seconds, the real reason appears. A favor, a recommendation, money, time, connections, emotional labor. You become useful, not valued. When things are going well in your life, they are invisible. When you are struggling, they are silent. But the moment they need help, they suddenly remember your existence. And if you help once, they praise you. If you help twice, they expect it. If you help 3 times, they feel entitled. Such people often disguise dependency as friendship. They say, "I trust only you," or "You're the only one I can count on." It sounds emotional, but it is actually pressure. Slowly, you feel guilty saying no. You begin rearranging your schedule, delaying your priorities, stretching your energy because you don't want to appear selfish. But here is the truth that hurts. They are not attached to you. They are attached to what you can provide. Notice what happens when you are unavailable. When you say, "I can't help this time," the tone changes. The warmth disappears. Messages reduce. Calls stop. There is no concern for your situation. Only disappointment that their need wasn't fulfilled. That silence is the loudest answer. A real relationship is balanced. It doesn't collapse when one person cannot give. True people don't keep score, but they also don't only take. They show up when there is nothing to gain. They check on you without needing anything. They stand by you when your usefulness is zero. People who only come when they need something drain your time, your kindness, and your emotional strength. And the most dangerous part is this: they make you feel selfish for protecting yourself. But self-respect is not selfishness. You must learn this gently but firmly. Being kind does not mean being available all the time. Helping once is generosity. Helping always at the cost of yourself becomes self-neglect. Observe who stays when you have nothing to offer. Observe who respects your boundaries. Because the ones who truly care for you will value your presence, not just your assistance. And remember, if someone disappears when you stop giving, they were never there for you in the first place. There are some people who don't steal money, don't raise their voice, don't openly hurt you. They steal something far more valuable, your trust. They do it slowly, casually, with a smile. At first, it feels harmless. They sit close to you and say, "Don't tell anyone," and then they share someone else's personal story, mistake, weakness, or pain. You listen. You feel important. You feel chosen. You think, "They trust me enough to share this." But what you don't realize is this: they are testing you. A person who spreads secrets is not building intimacy. They are revealing their character. Today, the story is about someone else. Tomorrow, the story will be about you. Not because you did something wrong, but because that is how they connect with people, through information, not integrity. Such people use secrets like currency. They exchange private information to feel powerful, relevant, or close to others. Silence makes them uncomfortable. They survive on attention. And the fastest way to gain attention is by sharing something that was never meant to be shared. You may notice how easily confidential things slip out of their mouth, how lightly they treat serious matters. They laugh while narrating someone's pain, or they justify themselves by saying, "I'm just telling you because I care," or "I trust you, that's why I'm sharing." But trust is proven by what you protect, not by what you expose. Be very careful with such people. If someone cannot respect another person's privacy, they will not respect yours either. It doesn't matter how close they seem. It doesn't matter how friendly they act. A loose tongue is a sign of a loose sense of responsibility. And here is the deeper damage. They create silent fear. Once you realize they share secrets, you start editing yourself around them. You speak less. You hide your struggles. You smile instead of expressing truth. Slowly, the relationship loses authenticity because you are no longer safe. Some people will say, "At least they are honest." No. Honesty does not mean revealing what is not yours to reveal. Wisdom knows when to speak and when to stay silent. A mature heart understands that confidentiality is a form of respect. Remember this, a secret is not heavy for a trustworthy person, but it is unbearable for someone who loves gossip. Protect your inner life. Choose carefully whom you open up to. Speak your vulnerabilities only to those who have proven over time that they can hold silence with the same strength that others hold words. Because once a secret leaves the wrong mouth, it never comes back the same. There are people who stand beside you, smile at you, and even applaud you. But inside, something feels uncomfortable when you rise. They will say the right things, "Very nice, so happy for you, you deserve it," but their energy tells a different story. A jealous supporter is not always obvious. They don't openly oppose you. In fact, they may stay very close. They listen to your dreams. They ask about your plans. They encourage you up to a point. And that point is exactly where your growth begins to outshine their comfort. You will notice it in small moments. When you share good news, their response is delayed. The excitement is missing. The smile doesn't reach the eyes. Or they immediately change the topic and start talking about their own struggles, pulling the attention back to themselves. Jealousy does not always look like hatred. Often it looks like comparison. They measure your progress against their own life. Your success becomes a reminder what they haven't done, what they postponed, what they avoided. And instead of working on themselves, they quietly begin to feel threatened by you. Such people may start giving advice that sounds caring but subtly limits you. Don't take too much risk. Stay realistic. You might fail. They call it concern, but it is actually fear. Fear that you will move ahead while they remain where they are. Over time, encouragement turns into sarcasm. Support turns into jokes. Compliments turn into backhanded remarks. They may highlight your mistakes more than your efforts. And if you fail, they suddenly become very active, full of guidance, comfort, and opinions. Not because they enjoy your pain consciously, but because your fall restores balance in their mind. The most painful part is this: they benefit from your emotional closeness but struggle with your success. They want access to your journey but not the reminder that growth is possible. And being around such people slowly dims your confidence. You begin to share less, celebrate quietly, shrink your joy so others don't feel uncomfortable. But your growth is not a crime. Your progress is not arrogance. And your success does not take anything away from anyone else. A true supporter may feel inspired by your rise, not threatened. They may feel challenged, but they will also feel motivated. They will celebrate you loudly, even when it highlights their own unfinished journey. Choose people who are happy when you win, even when they are still working on themselves. Because those who are uneasy with your light will eventually ask you, directly or indirectly, to dim it, and never do that. Let your growth be honest. Let your joy be full. Because anyone who truly cares about you will never feel smaller when you rise. They will feel prouder. There are people who can never sit with the idea that they might be wrong. No. Once, not even a little. In every situation, no matter how clear the facts are, they somehow manage to walk away clean, while the weight of responsibility quietly lands on someone else. This is the person who shifts blame. At first, it is confusing. You remember the conversation clearly. You know what was agreed upon. You know what actually happened. And yet, when things go wrong, the story changes. Words are twisted. Details are rearranged. Context is removed. And slowly, the fault is placed at your feet. Not aggressively, but cleverly. A blame shifter rarely shouts. They explain. They justify. They speak calmly and logically. They say things like, I only reacted because you did this, or if you had communicated better, this wouldn't have happened. On the surface, it sounds reasonable, but notice carefully. There is never a sentence that begins with, I was wrong. Such people protect their ego at all costs. Admitting a mistake feels like weakness to them. So instead of growth, they choose defense. Instead of reflection, they choose accusation. And because they speak confidently, you start questioning your own memory, your own intentions, your own worth. This is how emotional confusion begins. Over time, you may find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, explaining yourself repeatedly, or trying harder just to avoid conflict. You become extra careful with words, actions, and tone, because one small misunderstanding can again be turned against you. The relationship stops feeling safe and starts feeling like walking on glass. A blame shifter also avoids consequences. If something succeeds, they take credit. If it fails, they find a reason why someone else is responsible. They may blame circumstances, timing, people, or even your emotions, but they never blame themselves. And because of this, they never learn. The same mistakes repeat, but the face is arrow. And them keep changing. The danger is not just emotional exhaustion. The real danger is losing your self-trust. When someone constantly shifts blame, you slowly disconnect from your own inner voice. You start believing that maybe you are always the problem. And that belief can damage your confidence far beyond the relationship. A mature person says, I made a mistake, I will fix it. A blame shifter says, this happened because you made me do it. Understand this deeply. Accountability is a sign of strength. Anyone who cannot take responsibility cannot build trust. Because trust grows where honesty lives, and honesty begins with owning one's actions. Protect yourself from people who never apologize sincerely, never reflect honestly, and never change. You don't need to prove your innocence again and again. You don't need to carry guilt that doesn't belong to you. Choose relationships where mistakes lead to understanding, not accusations. Where problems are solved together, not used as weapons. Because when someone refuses to accept their part, they will always make you carry more than your share. And no relationship is worth losing your peace or your sense of self. There are people whose behavior changes with the weather of their emotions. One day they are warm, respectful, and kind. The next day, without warning, they become cold, distant, or even hurtful. You find yourself wondering what you did wrong, replaying conversations in your mind, searching for a mistake that doesn't exist. This is the person whose respect depends on their mood. At first, you excuse it. You tell yourself they're just stressed or everyone has bad days. And that is true, everyone does. But there is a difference between having a bad day and making others pay for your bad day. A mood-based person doesn't manage their emotions, they distribute them. You will notice that their kindness is inconsistent. When they feel happy, they listen to you, value you, and treat you well. When they feel irritated, insecure, or low, their tone changes. Respect disappears. Patience vanishes. Suddenly, you are treated as if you are less important, less worthy, less deserving of basic decency. The most exhausting part is the uncertainty. You never know which version of them you will meet, so you start preparing yourself emotionally before every interaction. You adjust your words, you soften your opinions, you walk carefully, not because you are wrong, but because you want peace. Slowly, you begin to shrink. Such people often justify their behavior by saying, this is just how I am, or I can't fake my emotions. But emotional honesty does not give anyone the right to disrespect others. Self-control is not pretending, it is maturity. And respect is not a feeling, it is a choice. Being around a mood-based person trains you to ignore your own needs. You start prioritizing their emotional state over your self-respect. If they are happy, everything is fine. If they are upset, you feel responsible to fix it. This imbalance quietly drains your energy and confidence. A healthy person may be upset, tired, or frustrated, but they still treat people with dignity. They may ask for space. They may communicate honestly, but they do not punish others for their internal struggles. Understand this clearly: consistency is a form of love. Stability is a form of respect. Anyone who values you will not make you feel small just because they are having a bad moment. You deserve relationships where respect is not temporary, kindness is not conditional, and peace is not dependent on someone else's mood. You are not responsible for managing another adult's emotions, and you should never have to earn basic respect by staying silent or shrinking yourself. Choose people who remain grounded even when life shakes them. Because emotional stability is not perfection, it is responsibility. And responsibility is the foundation of trust. There are people who talk endlessly about dreams, plans, and grand ideas, but when it comes to action, they vanish. They make promises to themselves and to you, but the promises are empty. They speak with passion and vision, but their life is static. These are the people who waste your time without giving anything in return. At first, it is inspiring. They are full of energy, enthusiasm, and possibilities. You feel motivated by their vision. You imagine yourself alongside them, achieving great things together. You admire their confidence. You even start sharing your own dreams, thinking, this is someone who understands me. But slowly patterns emerge. Meetings are postponed. Plans never materialize. Projects stall. Excuses pile up. They always have reasons why something couldn't happen. Lack of resources, bad timing, external circumstances. Rarely, if ever, do they take responsibility for their lack of follow-through. Their dreams remain ideas, and your time spent in their orbit becomes a hidden cost. Time is the most precious resource we have, and spending it on someone who produces nothing in action is silently draining. You invest your energy, your encouragement, your attention, hoping to help them move forward. You believe in their words, you support their ideas. But slowly you start to notice that their words are designed to inspire others, not themselves. They thrive on admiration, not accomplishment. Some of these people are charming, likable, and even very persuasive. They will talk circles around you, using emotional appeal, humor, or intellect to make you feel connected. And while you are drawn into their enthusiasm, the reality is that their life remains static. You begin to feel frustrated, not because they failed, but because your energy was invested in illusions. A time waster doesn't just waste their own potential, they waste yours. They ask for advice, feedback, and support, but rarely implement any of it. They borrow ideas, take inspiration, and consume guidance without reciprocating effort. Slowly, they teach you to doubt your judgment. Did I misread them? Was I too hopeful? Did I push too hard? The danger is subtle. It creeps into your life as lost time, diminished focus, and emotional exhaustion. You start questioning your own ability to judge character. You start lowering your guard, thinking, maybe I can motivate them. But true motivation only works when someone is willing to act. If they are addicted to talking, action will never follow. Understand this clearly: action is the test of sincerity. Words are cheap. Anyone can paint a beautiful picture with phrases, but only effort turns a vision into reality. If someone repeatedly fails to act despite promises, it is not your responsibility to fix them. Your encouragement is valuable, but your life is more valuable. Learn to recognize the difference between inspiration and illusion. Some people are meant to encourage, some to challenge, but some will only consume your time without giving back. Protect your energy. Surround yourself with people who do, not just people who dream loudly, because in the end, life rewards action, not words. And those who waste your time are quietly stealing moments you will never get back. Protect your time as fiercely as you protect your heart. There are people who pose as guides, advisors, or mentors, but their guidance is not meant to lift you up, it is meant to make you feel small. They present themselves as wise, experienced, and caring, but their true purpose is driven by ego. These are the people I call ego-driven advisors. At first, they are advocates. He may seem thoughtful. They speak with authority and conviction. They give detailed steps, share examples, and even praise your ideas. But there is always a subtle undertone that reminds you of your limitations. A question here, a suggestion there, a maybe you shouldn't remark disguised as caution. Little by little, they plant seeds of doubt. You may not notice it immediately. After all, who questions guidance? But over time, a pattern emerges. Their advice is rarely neutral. It doesn't empower you to grow or make decisions independently. It nudges you toward choices that make them feel superior. They thrive on seeing you dependent on their wisdom, even if it means holding you back. Ego-driven advisors rarely celebrate your successes fully. If you achieve something on your own, they might downplay it, attribute it to luck, or subtly imply that it wouldn't have been possible without their guidance. Their pride cannot tolerate you outshining them. And when you make a mistake, they are quick to remind you, often exaggerating your error, to reaffirm their perceived superiority. The most dangerous part is that they often appear genuinely caring. They may listen patiently, nod knowingly, and offer encouragement, but underneath they are measuring, comparing, and strategizing how to maintain control. You leave conversations feeling confused, grateful for advice, yet insecure about your own abilities. That insecurity is exactly what they feed on. Notice how they react to independent thinking. If you question their perspective, they respond defensively. If you try a different approach, they subtly belittle your choice. And if you succeed without them, you might notice a change in tone, coldness, silence, or even backhanded compliments. Ego cannot coexist with the empowerment of others. A true advisor or mentor doesn't seek to make you small. They don't measure their worth against your growth. Instead, they illuminate your path, celebrate your victories, and allow you to stumble safely. They provide tools, not chains. They guide, but they never control. Ego-driven advisors, on the other hand, are like mirrors showing only your flaws and magnifying their own reflection. Their guidance is not about your journey. It is about maintaining their relevance in your story. They want to be needed, not respected. They want authority, not mutual growth. You must learn to recognize them. Their advice often comes with subtle criticism. Their praise is conditional. Their interest in you spikes when you are uncertain and diminishes when you are confident. They measure relationships not by loyalty or trust, but by influence and control. Protect yourself from this kind of influence. Seek guidance from those who genuinely want to see you rise, not from those who feel threatened by your growth. Trust those who empower, not those who dominate, because your life, your choices, and your success should belong to you, not to someone else's ego. Remember, advice is valuable, but only when it builds, not when it binds. And the right mentor will guide you without ever making you feel small. There are people who disregard your boundaries, who push past your no, and who treat your limits as optional. At first, it may feel like small acts, interrupting when you speak, asking for favors you haven't agreed to, or questioning your personal choices. You may excuse it, thinking they probably don't mean harm, or maybe I'm being too sensitive, but boundaries are sacred, and anyone who consistently ignores them is quietly eroding your peace. Boundaries are not arbitrary. They are the invisible lines that define your emotional, mental, and physical space. They tell others how you want to be treated, what you are comfortable with, and where your limits lie. When someone disrespects them, they are not just crossing a line, they are teaching you that your comfort, your autonomy, and your needs are negotiable. At first, you may try to explain, remind, or reason. You might say, I'm not comfortable with this, or please don't do that. And sometimes they may apologize, but more often than not, the behavior repeats. Every repeated disregard chips away at your confidence. You begin to question your own feelings, wondering if you are overreacting, too sensitive or unreasonable. That is exactly what they want, your self-doubt. People who consistently ignore boundaries often justify their behavior. They say, I didn't think it mattered, or I was just joking, or it's not a big deal. But for the person whose limits are crossed, it is a big deal. Repeated violations create a subtle but constant stress, leaving you anxious, frustrated, and emotionally drained. And over time, you may start avoiding them, not because you don't like them, but because protecting yourself becomes necessary for your well-being. Another dangerous aspect of boundary violators is their ability to manipulate. They make you feel guilty for asserting yourself. They may accuse you of being rigid, unkind, or unsupportive. And if you let guilt dictate your actions, you end up compromising your own values and peace just to avoid conflict. Their respect for your boundaries is conditional. It exists only when it serves them. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about protecting yourself. And anyone who refuses to respect them is indirectly showing you how they truly see you, as someone whose needs and feelings are secondary to their own. This is not compatibility. This is control disguised as closeness. The truth is uncomfortable. People who disrespect your limits will eventually destroy your peace if you continue to allow it. They may not intend to cause harm consciously, but harm is inevitable when your autonomy is disregarded repeatedly. True relationships, whether friendships, romantic partnerships, or professional connections, thrive on mutual respect. When boundaries are honored, trust grows. When boundaries are ignored, resentment and pain accumulate. Learning to protect yourself is not selfish. Saying no is not rude. Upholding your limits is not unkind. It is an act of self-respect, and it sets a standard for how others can treat you. Those who genuinely care will honor your boundaries willingly. Those who don't are showing you who they are. Remember, your peace, your time, and your emotional health are non-negotiable. Do not allow anyone to cross lines that you have drawn for your well-being. Because people who disrespect boundaries are not just challenging your patience, they are challenging the very foundation of your life. And no one is worth that kind of compromise. In the end, the people who respect your limits are the ones who truly value you. They may not always agree with you, but they will never make you feel unsafe or small. They understand that love, friendship, and respect flourish only in spaces where boundaries are honored, and that is where true trust is born.